Welcome back to Unmasked, where we take off the filters and get real about faith, failure, and finding freedom. I'm your host, Wesley Farnsworth, a dad, veteran, author, and a man who has learned that often the hard way, God doesn't just work around our mess, He works through it. Today's episode is called Unmasking Self-Sabotage, when your greatest enemy is in the mirror. And I want to say this up front, gently but clearly. This episode is not about shame. And it's not about beating yourself up. And it's definitely not about blaming yourself for everything that's gone wrong. This is about awareness, because you cannot heal what you refuse to see. See, there's often a quiet war within us. Most of us think of spiritual warfare as something external. We think of it as temptation, opposition, attacks from the enemy. But one of the most dangerous battlegrounds is internal. Because the enemy rarely needs to destroy us outright. He just needs to keep us stuck. He needs to keep us stuck in patterns, stuck in fear, stuck in delay, stuck in almost. And often, the tool that keeps us stuck isn't obvious sin, it's self-sabotage. Self-sabotage is the quiet agreement we make with fear while telling ourselves we're being wise. So what does self-sabotage look like? I can tell you that self-sabotage doesn't normally look dramatic. It looks like starting strong and slowly fading, knowing what to do, but never quite doing it, getting close to healing and then backing away, staying busy to avoid being honest, saying someday instead of today. Do any of those resonate with you? It's a habit of interrupting your own progress. You don't blow everything up. You just never fully step in. And over time, that creates a life that feels spiritually frustrating because deep down, you know there's more. So why do we do this to ourselves? Let's slow down here for a minute because this matters. Most people who self-sabotage are not lazy. They're not unmotivated. They're not weak. They're not afraid. Fear of failure is one of the reasons that we do this to ourselves. Because failure threatens our sense of worth. If I try and fail, what does that say about me? If I step out and fall, will I confirm my worst fears? So instead of risking failure, we choose avoidance. But here's the truth. Avoidance doesn't protect you. It slowly erodes your confidence. Another reason that we do this to ourselves is the fear of exposure. Healing requires honesty. Calling requires visibility. And visibility feels dangerous. If you've learned that being seen leads to rejection, judgment, or pain, then you stay guarded. You curate. You control the narrative. You stay safe, but not free. Another reason we may do this is the fear of success. This one is uncomfortable to admit. Because what if God actually changes me? What if I become someone new? What if I can't go back? Growth demands responsibility. And responsibility means that you can't hide behind the old excuses anymore. Sometimes we sabotage success because the success would require us to let go of the identities that we've used for so long to survive. Another reason we may do it is attachment to the old story. Even painful identities can feel familiar. The struggler, the one who's always behind, the one who needs help but never leads. Healing requires burying an old version of yourself, and resurrection always feels unsettling at first. The fifth and final reason that we may do this to ourselves is waiting for perfection. We wait until we feel confident enough. We wait until we feel healed enough, until we feel disciplined enough or spiritual enough. But Scripture never shows God calling the ready. He calls the willing. Here's where it gets especially subtle. Because spiritual self-sabotage often hides behind spiritual language. I'm just waiting on God. I'm still praying about it. I don't want to rush God's timing. And sometimes that's true. But sometimes, if we're honest, it's fear wearing a faith costume. God's timing is real, but delay rooted in fear is not obedience. Faith doesn't always wait. Sometimes faith moves while trembling. And at some point, there has to be a moment of clarity. If you haven't had it, it's coming. It's the moment when you look in the mirror. The moment when you realize, I keep repeating the same cycles. I keep praying the same prayers. I keep asking God to change things while resisting change. This is not a moment of condemnation. It's a moment of invitation. Because the moment you stop blaming everything outside of you, you regain the power over what's within you. I've had seasons where I asked God for freedom, but was still clinging to habits that kept me numb. Seasons when I prayed for purpose, but I avoided the risk that purpose required. I've had seasons where I wanted transformation, but only if it didn't disrupt my comfort. And God, patiently but firmly, kept bringing me back to one truth. And He said, Wes, I'm not holding you back. You are. That realization hurt, but it healed. How do you break the cycles of self-sabotage? Let's talk about that for a moment. Let's talk about some things that actually help. The first thing that you can do to break the cycle of self-sabotage is to name the pattern. See, self-sabotage thrives in vagueness. So ask yourself, where do I consistently stop short? What excuses feel reasonable but repeat often? What step do I keep postponing? Naming the pattern breaks the power. Another thing that you can do to break the cycle of self-sabotage is to identify the lie beneath it. Self-sabotage is usually protecting a belief. I'm not capable. I'll ruin it. I don't deserve better. But Scripture says, he who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. If God starts this work, He is not intimidated by your weakness. Another thing that we can do, and the final thing to break the cycle of self-sabotage, is to take one brave step. I know you've heard me say this before. One step. I encourage you to do it often on this podcast. But take a brave step. Not a leap, not a full plan. Just one step. Make the call. Schedule the appointment. Have the conversation. Set the boundary. Movement disrupts stagnation. And when you're obedient, that changes everything. See, because courage doesn't precede obedience, it follows it. Confidence is not a prerequisite, it's a byproduct. Every major shift in my life has started with a small, uncomfortable yes. Not a bold, not confident, just honest. And God has met me every time, not with pressure, but with grace. If you're listening to this still and you're thinking, this is me, I hear you. How did you know? hear this. You're not listening to this by accident today. And you are not broken beyond repair. You are not lazy, and you are not failing God. You're still learning. I'm still learning. And learning often begins with unlearning patterns that have once kept us safe. So I want to ask you a few questions to consider today as we wrap up. But I don't want you to rush past these. Take a moment, listen to them, and contemplate them. Maybe write them down so that you can refer back to them. Are you ready? The first question is, where have I been getting in my own way? The second question, what fear has been driving my hesitation? The third question is, what step has God been inviting me to take over and over again? And finally, what would it look like to say yes this time? Because God is not waiting for you to become fearless. He just wants you to become willing. He's waiting for you. The ball is in your court. You don't have to stop being afraid to move forward. You just have to stop letting the fear make decisions for you. Thanks for joining me today on Unmasked. If this episode spoke to you, would you take a moment and share it with somebody else who might need to hear it too? Until next time, remember that grace is greater than your past, and growth begins with honesty, and freedom starts when we stop hiding from God and from ourselves, and we choose to live unmasked. God bless you.